News Talk 820 AM, WBAP.
6:18 right now, Marley. Brian Bouffard, our friend, joins us right now, who is a former prosecutor, now turned defense attorney, who can give us some insight in the news that broke over the weekend with regard to the FBI forensic lab, where the Justice Department of the FBI now acknowledged that nearly every examiner in an elite FBI forensic unit gave flawed testimony in almost all trials in which they offered evidence against criminal defendants. When I hear terms like all and every and 95% of the 268 trials reviewed so far, Brian, these numbers are scary. These words are scary.
They are scary, and another word that's scary is the word flawed, and we should substitute the word lied, because that's what they did. They lied in cases to benefit the government against the individual citizen.
All right, what are they lying about out of this forensics lab? What are they doing?
Well, what they're doing, or what they had done, is that they had overstated what it means to have a quote unquote hair match. So they're using bad science, or they're using science that doesn't say quite exactly what they and the prosecutors want it to say. So instead of admitting that and letting the jury sort that out, and letting the defense attorney have a chance to attack it, they overstate it. They essentially say that, yeah, well, this shows that the guy was there, or words to that effect. So you can imagine how that would affect a juror trying to make a decision about whether somebody is guilty or not guilty. They've got FBI scientists telling them basically that they are.
And Brian, we're not saying now that in these cases this was the only bit of evidence to convict, but it was a piece of the puzzle for much of them, right?
Well, it was certainly a piece of the puzzle for all of them, and whether or not it was the key piece of evidence or not, that's very fact dependent, and we've got thousands of cases that are going to have to be reviewed. And also bear in mind that 14 people are now dead, either by execution or having died in prison, in part because of this testimony. It's absolutely unconscionable.
Okay, so what happens next? We understand that they've reviewed nearly 300 cases so far. You say there are thousands to be reviewed. What happens next, though? Do all of those get thrown out?
Well, not necessarily, because as you pointed out, there likely was some other evidence of guilt in the case. So the question would be, if they retry them, would the remaining evidence be sufficient for a conviction? And so those are the really hard questions that everybody's going to have to wrestle with in all these states that this happened. I mean, this is a nationwide problem because we're talking about a federal agency. So
this is and I saw a quote from a guy with the Innocence Project who says this whole hair analysis project out of the FBI was a disaster. Then is that right?
It is a disaster, and has been a disaster, and the reason for that is that the science just simply does not support what the government wants to believe that it supports. It's the same logic behind polygraph exams. You know, do they tell us something? Well, sure, but do they tell us enough to be even admissible in court? Well, no, they don't. And so bad science is supposed to be kept out of courts, and in this case, it wasn't, and the reason why it wasn't is because we had government officials lying about it.
Yeah, and the priority is to make sure that the guilty are in fact charged and serve their time, but you also have to look at the dollars this will cost. This is going to be expensive.
Oh, it's going to be expensive and brutal and time-consuming, and already on an overburdened justice system. So it's a problem, but it's a problem that absolutely has to be fixed if we want to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and call ourselves a country that cares about the rule of law.
So, Brian, right now, do we have lawyers all across the country scrambling to get their case reviewed and then hopefully to have it heard again?
I'm sure we are. Yeah. And bear in mind, we've got cases literally from the 1970s that are affected by this. So, attorneys are dead. Attorneys have moved on. There's going to have to be attorneys assigned to these cases to shepherd them through this process, and it's going to be brutal.
Yeah, it is. Brian Bouffard, thanks as always for the insight. We appreciate it.